I got a chance to visit Japan for 12 nights with a friend, and I'll share with you our last 2 nights in Tokyo, which was our 4th night in Japan in Shibuya, known for the world famous crossing, and our very last night in Japan, where we stayed in the Asakusa area of Tokyo. I'll show you where we stayed, what we did, and what we ate. After our first 3 nights in Tokyo, we decided we wanted to try out a capsule hotel that Japan is known for, but wanted a bit more room and a little bit more comfort than some of the traditional capsule hotels. And after searching for a bit, we found the Millennials in Shibuya. It was a little bit more expensive at around $100 a night, but I was able to stand up in the capsule. It had really nice common areas, and most importantly, I got the best night of sleep during my stay in Japan here. So we dropped off our luggage at the hotel around 7:30 a.m. and got some coffee. And our goal today was to take the Yamanote line around the city, which basically does a circle around Tokyo and has 30 stops. And this was inspired by the Abroad in Japan video where they visited each stop. And we figured we could do about half the stops, and this would be a very unique way to see a lot of the city and maybe some spots not visited by tourists. So we started off our journey by walking to Yoyogi Park, which is only about 5 minutes from the Millennials, and it's also a stop on the Yamanote line. It was a peaceful park, and you kind of forgot that you were in the Tokyo metropolis. After leaving the park, we started heading toward the train station and came across the entrance to the Meiji Shrine, which wasn't on our to-do list, so we took some pictures and then decided to head to the shrine, but after realizing it was a long walk, we scrapped that and went straight to the subway. Our first true stop on the Yamanote line was Shinjuku to check it out during the day. Now, the Shinjuku station felt like the largest and most complicated subway station, which I didn't film since we were trying to get out. It was difficult finding an exit, but somehow we ended up in the lobby of a building. And once we finally got to the street, we explored around for a bit and even checked out a massive electronics store. And we also saw a large row of vending machines selling toys called a gasapon, and the toys cost around 300 to 500 yen from the ones that we saw, and they come out in a little capsule. And like I said in my first Tokyo video, vending machines are just about everywhere in Japan. Our next stop was Shin-Okubo for Koreatown. It was a really cool area and there seemed to be some great restaurant options, but unfortunately it was a little bit too early for lunch. However, we did stop at a coffee shop and a bakery where I tried a cold yuzu tea, which is basically a popular citrus fruit in Japan. And while you're waiting for the train to take you to your next stop, you get a great view of Koreatown. Our next stop on the Yamanote line was Ikebukuro to visit the Pokemon Center Mega Tokyo. What I didn't realize was how far it was to the Pokemon store from the train station. It was almost half a mile once we got outside of the train station. And on our long trek from the station to the Pokemon store, we stopped at a video arcade that had claw machines and the capsule toy vending machines. We tried our luck a couple times on the claw machines, but somehow didn't find success. So I decided to go for the sure thing and head to the gasapon part of the store, aka the toy vending machines. There were probably 100 or so of these capsule machines, with each offering something different, and after spending a few minutes looking at the variety of options, I finally decided on what I believe was some type of Godzilla toy, which I think cost around 300 or 400 yen. And after leaving here, we finally made our way to the Pokemon store and bought a few souvenirs after waiting in line for a bit. After our trek to and from the Pokemon store, our next stop was Otsuka to try some onigiri at Onigiri Bongo, but unfortunately they had a long line and we were pretty hungry since it was already around 1 or 1:30. So we decided to pick a local restaurant and I went for the lunch special, which included fried chicken, grilled chicken, miso soup, white rice, and a few other things. And overall it was a pretty decent lunch and I think it cost around $10 US. After finally eating lunch, our next stop was Nishi-Nippori to check out the Suwa Shrine, and this was definitely a unique stop since we didn't notice many tourists at all. And we spent a little time at the shrine getting some pictures and also taking a break from all the walking. And when we headed to and from the shrine, we had to go through a tunnel where there were quite a large number of bikes parked, and we noticed bikes were one of the more popular modes of transportation in Japan. Next up is Akihabara, the anime and electronics area of Tokyo. And this would definitely be a stop worth visiting at night to see everything lit up, but we only visited during the day. And we looked around in a few stores and definitely noticed a few interesting places such as the Maid Cafe, and if you don't know what that is, then Google it. We stopped at a cafe for some coffee and a snack, which was a common theme of ours, where I tried a pizza hot dog as my afternoon snack, which was pretty decent. And after the snack, we walked around for a bit more before figuring out where our next stop was going to be. We decided to head back to the hotel since we were getting a little tired and had been up since around 6 or 6:30 in the morning and had walked around 7 miles so far. After heading out of Shibuya Station, we experienced the famous Shibuya Scramble Crossing and got some good shots of the area. We even saw a casino, which I thought was illegal in Japan, so I'm not exactly sure how that works, and maybe you just don't play for money or something like that. And once back at the hotel, we rested for a bit before heading out for the evening. To start our evening off in Shibuya, we decided to check out Lost, a bar from abroad in Japan's Crisp Broad. This was only about a 6-minute walk from our capsule hotel, which was really close to some of the area attractions. And we probably spent a couple hours here, and if you're looking for the entrance, just note it's a bit discreet, just slide the door and you're in. And overall, it was a really cool bar and worth visiting if you're in the area, whether you watch abroad in Japan or not. After leaving Lost, we explored around the area for a bit, but ultimately headed to Shogun for burgers, which sounded really good since it was getting late and we were getting pretty hungry. It was a small little cool restaurant, and there are a few around Tokyo, and they offer a variety of different burgers, including plant-based. After dinner, we spent a little bit more time checking out the Shibuya area before calling it a night, since we've been up early in the morning and had clocked in around 9 miles of walking. After spending the next 7 nights in other cities in Japan, we headed back to Tokyo for our last night from Kyoto via bullet train before we headed back to Houston. And one of the really cool things about bullet trains, besides going fast, is getting to see all the different areas of Japan. We chose the Asakusa area for our last night in Japan and stayed at the Sake Bar Hotel Asakusa. We both opted for the standard double room, and they were pretty small but functional and comfortable and reasonably priced. For our last night in Tokyo, we checked out the Asakusa area and loaded up on souvenirs and snacks to bring back to family and friends. And there's a lot of options at the Nakamise shopping street near the Sensoji Temple and all around the area too. We also stopped at KFC for a late lunch to see what it was all about, but it really didn't seem too much different than the American version, but it was still good. And after a late lunch, we explored the area some more and finished up buying souvenirs. We also found a couple knife shops that had a variety of different options and didn't seem to be too overpriced. And I was finally able to upgrade my 10-year-old IKEA knife. And also Don Quixote had some really good souvenir ideas, and one of the things I really liked that they had were these wooden postcards. For our last dinner in Japan, we decided on Wagyu and found the restaurant A5 Wagyu Yakiniku PANGA Asakusa, which had fantastic reviews and was only a short walk from our hotel, so we booked the reservation a couple days in advance and both opted for the 11-course dinner. And after our host seated us side by side overlooking the Sumida River, we were ready to feast. And we started off with an appetizer of 3 different Wagyu cuts, followed by a salad. And after that, we indulged our taste buds in all the different Wagyu cuts and meats offered to us, where our waitress cooked multiple courses at our table.
Wow. Yeah.
And here's the finished product of the first steak. And up next was tongue, and that's right, cow tongue, skirt steak, and sliced brisket. And the tongue was actually my favorite of the 3, but all 3 were great. This was the thin sliced sirloin with truffle egg mousse sauce, which was probably the best dish of the night. And you also gotta have your Wagyu sushi. For our last steak course, we had 3 cuts of meat, which we cooked ourselves with a little difficulty at first. After finishing up the remaining courses, we left the restaurant in a food coma and headed back to the hotel, where we indulged in some of the drinks they offered, including one called amasake. And it's either a traditional sweet, low alcohol, or non-alcoholic Japanese drink, and it's made with fermented rice, and this one had a chunky rice texture to it, but otherwise it was pretty good. We had some time to do whatever we wanted on our last day in Tokyo since our flight wasn't until 6 p.m. And after getting started late in the morning, we did a bit more souvenir shopping in Asakusa and visited Sensoji Temple, the oldest and most popular temple in Tokyo. And being on a Friday, the crowds were out, including school field trips. And I didn't realize it until I got back, but I didn't take any videos at the temple, and maybe it was just because I was in awe of everything around, plus how crowded it was in places. But even with it being crowded, make sure you visit this temple if you are in Tokyo. And after our time here, we decided to grab our bags from the hotel and caught one of the trains at the Asakusa station all the way back to Narita for our direct flight back to Houston. And it took about an hour and maybe 15 minutes to get to the airport, and thankfully our train wasn't crowded at all, so we were able to sit down and relax on the ride there. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, please like and subscribe, and I'll keep making videos similar to this.